Part 30. I can get closer to them now, and grow the relationship in the future. When I got closer to Yangi Palace, I saw that the courtyard door was open. Obviously not the main hall of the concubine. After everyone came in, I looked around, although the stone walls of Yangi Palace were still neat and clean. But there was not a relationship where no one lived, and it always revealed a bit of a dilapidated scene. The large autumn chrysanthemums were not seen. But a few bushes of wild chrysanthemums in the corner of the wall were blooming enthusiastically. Seeing that the former prosperous and lively place had become like this, the two sisters and brothers didn't know what to say. Pu Qiutai sighed with embarrassment. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly saw a palace maid hurriedly walking out of the hall above, looking at her age of about 20. Seeing them, she suddenly stopped her steps. And her eyes just looked at Zhu Mingfang and Zhu Shanyan excitedly, and suddenly shouted excitedly, "No, is that really you? Ah, yes. Is it Sister Chengxing?" The two children were also stunned for a moment, but then they ran to the palace maid with a cheer, and asked her a series of questions, why she was here. Others are still waiting for the rest of the year? Chengxing also burst into tears and asked if their parents were okay. How about waiting in the Yunhai Palace now? Reuniting after a long absence. It can be said that it was an escape from death, and it is inevitable to hug each other and cry and ask. Finally finished briefly describing the farewell. And Chengxing remembered that there was another master over there. Hurriedly wiped her tears, looked up, and saw a handsome and elegant man standing there quietly, looking at this side with gentle eyes, thinking that it was Mother Concubine Wen who had been rumored in the palace recently. Regarding Pu Qiutai entering the palace, Chengxing also learned some reasons from the rumors. This adult was originally just forced to leave the palace, but because of the emperor's love, he changed Fang and forced him to enter the palace with two children from the previous dynasty. Thinking of these rumors, and then looking at the clean and neat Zhu Mingfang and Zhu Shanyan, Chengxing was really grateful, so she was busy stepping forward to salute, but she heard Pu Qiutai smile faintly. "Excuse me. Are you the old court maid in this Yangi Palace?" Chengxing nodded yes, and then sighed. The slave maid used to serving the young master's mother. Later, I was assigned to clean this Yangi Palace, and the years in the palace were lonely. But I really didn't expect to meet Mother and the two today. Miss Young Master, the slave maid was really dumbfounded when I saw that Miss Young Master was well. Pu Qiutai nodded, sighed and didn't say anything. Chengxing invited everyone into the house to sit, and personally brought tea, embarrassed. "There is no good tea here for slaves. Please take a look." Pu Qiutai took a sip and said with a light smile, "It's okay." Then he put down the teacup, looked around the house, and said strangely, "I heard Shanyan and Mingfang say that this used to be a good place to see flowers, but now there are no flowers?" Chengxing sighed. "The rare flowers here have been moved to all palaces and halls. And the flowers and trees in front of the house and behind the house have also been transplanted into the Imperial Garden, and now there are only some wildflowers and grasses left. Originally, someone came to bulldoze this place and planned to put it in the Imperial Garden, but I don't know why there was no movement later." "I see." When Pu Qiutai heard the reason, he didn't know what it was like, and he suddenly heard Zhu Mingfang say, "In the past, royal concubine Yuan liked to come here to see the flowers the most. Once. I don't know why my grandfather ignored her, but my grandmother took the opportunity to invite my grandfather to come and see the flowers, and asked her to come to see my grandfather. And they reconciled. Now that they have all gone, they didn't expect that my brother and I would have the opportunity to visit the same place again today." Pu Qiutai knew that royal concubine Yuan was Emperor Jing Ren's favorite concubine. And the unicorns in Mingfang's mouth were naturally Emperor Jing Ren and his empress. Because of the sigh, several people talked about some old things in the past. Chengxing was a little afraid of Honglian and Liulu at first, and then saw that they were also listening and asking with great interest, so they became bold and really said a lot of things in the past. They said happily. Unconsciously the sun went west, Honglian went out to see it, and when she came back, she said, "Mother, let's go back to Yunhai Palace. I only said that I came out to shop." Who knew that this visit was actually a long time, but I am afraid that Sister Farong is in a hurry. Pu Qiutai got up with a smile and said, "Isn't it? When you talk happily, you forget the hour." So, he looked at Chengxing again and said, "Let you say that the other palace maids have been assigned elsewhere. Is there only one left in this Yangi palace now?" Chengxing said, "Yes. There was originally another one, but later because she said that she wanted to plan this into the Imperial Garden, she was also transferred to concubine Fang's side. Now only the slave maid is still here, but I don't know when she will probably be transferred." That being the case, Pu Qiutai groaned for a while, turned to Honglian and said, "You write it down, tell the female official in charge of this matter, if Chengxing wants to be transferred out in the future, let her go to the Yunhai Palace directly. Didn't you say that the personnel of the Yunhai Palace are not full, and there are still several vacancies?" Honglian smiled. "Isn't it? There are several vacancies in earnest. And the position of the mother is here. It's just that mother is so quiet, and he doesn't like pomp, and there are slaves and maids, etc., and there are enough people." Sister Farong also said that there are not so many people, so they didn't let the Internal Affairs Office arrange it. Pu Qiutai was silent, and Chengxing was silent. Honglian used to be the palace maid by Xia Linxuan's side. No matter how she looked at Pu Qiutai, she wouldn't think that this saint's grandeur was a bad thing. But Pu Qiutai and Chengxing are both old people of the Qing dynasty. Hearing this at this time, not to mention the embarrassment and sadness in Pu Qiutai's heart, it is Chengxing. And her eyes are full of sighs and sympathy, and then look at Yangi Palace where this person is neither a thing nor a thing, and she can't help but murmur. Serving Mrs. Shunming Bo, Mrs. also loves the poetry of adults. And the slave maid still remembers that she often talked to Shunming Bo about the adults' Mandarin lake song at that time. What sight! Zhu Shanyan and Zhu Mingfang naturally recite this famous long poem made by Pu Qiutai. So they were a little puzzled, but they heard Chengxing mutter, "Poplar is another person's tree, and the red powder knows what is wrong." Old day building. Before he finished speaking, tears were already raining down. I came to lean against the lake, and the smoke and rain platform was empty. Fang Sao was suspicious of singing and fanning green. And Luiying still recognized the fresh of the dance clothes. Pu Qiutai couldn't help but continue reading, choked up when he read it, shook his head and said, "Don't read such poems in the future, it's too sad." Chengxing agreed in a low voice, and Honglian also saw that the master was in a melancholy mood and didn't dare to speak anymore. But she glared at Chengxing with some disgust, secretly blaming her for arousing Pu Qiutai's sadness. Obviously, these days, watching the master live steadily in the harem, the prince sometimes couldn't help but come and tease a few times, but he only changed himself to be depressed. They only felt that Pu Qiutai was much stronger than the half-dead appearance before. Thinking of this, he said to Pu Qiutai, "Mother, it's not early, and I just said that I want to go back." Pu Qiutai nodded, said a few more words to Chengxing, turned around and went out. But looked at those flowers and trees wordlessly along the way, and silently returned to Yunhai Palace. When I returned to Yunhai Palace, I saw Sha Dongming losing his temper in the courtyard, and reprimanded those little eunuchs. "Do you want you to eat for nothing? People can lose it. I don't know if I ask 3 questions. If it goes on like this, it's useless to ask you dog slaves. So let's all send them to the frontier to be partners. He was scolding, suddenly hearing the sound of footsteps behind him. Xia Dongming couldn't help but stop his voice, turned his head to look, and saw Pu Qiutai standing behind him with a calm expression, and said indifferently, "Who does your highness want them to look at?" As a result, I didn't look at it. So why did you scold here? Xia Dongming suddenly lost his voice. He wanted to say let them look at you and the 2 little cubs, but finally remembered in time that this man was nominally his mother. Very funny, isn't it? There's no way, no matter how funny people are, they are still in the name of a mother. And the most helpless thing is, the father is still on the side of others. The concubine is back. The son was about to go to ask his mother to say goodbye, but none of these servants knew where the mother had gone, and the son was worried for a while, so I became irritable. The mother concubine also knows that this harem looks at the scenery, but it is actually a trap everywhere in crisis. In future, the mother concubine will go out and call this son, and dare not say anything else. Why am I also the prince? And those concubines still have to sell me a little face. Several experiences have made Xia Dongming understand the truth that he must not be able to deal with Pu Qiutai. So he put on a smiling face and prepared to outwit him. Well, thank you for the prince's attention. Pu Qiutai didn't have any good impression of Xia Dongming. A vicious and arrogant child at a young age, but looking at his cunning appearance at this time, he couldn't help but feel a little funny. He thought of his little nephew, who was about the same age as the little prince in front of him. Once he wanted something delicious, wouldn't the expression of his big eyes be the same as this little guy? Because of thinking of this, he took away the disgust in Su Riley, and didn't say anything, so he took Zhu Shanyan and Zhu Mingfang inside, but unexpectedly. As soon as he passed by Xia Dongming's side, he heard Zhu Shanyan scream. He hurriedly turned around, and saw Xia Dongming looking at him sincerely, holding Zhu Shanyan's hand tightly, and said solemnly, "Mother, my son has thought about it, since Yunar and Mingfang are also going to live here with my mother, and my son will also live here in the future. It is better to be closer." What does the concubine think? That's not necessary. The identities of Shanyan and Mingfang are not worthy of being close to His Royal Highness Crown Prince. Pu Qiutai's eyes fell on Xia Dongming's hand that was clutching Zhu Shanyan's wrist, and his good-looking eyebrows wrinkled slightly. Thinking that this bastard prince seemed to like to stare at Shanyan and bully, it wouldn't be the same problem with his father, right? After thinking about it, I felt that this was impossible. Xia Dongming was just a 5-year-old child. What do you know? I'm too grassy and a soldier. Seeing that Xia Dongming's face was not very good looking, he softened his voice and said, "Besides, Shanyan is a few years older than you. You call him Yunar? It's funny. That's called Brother Yun, right?" Xia Dongming ignored it, took Zhu Shanyan's hand, and glared at him quietly threateningly, before turning to Pu Qiutai and smiling. "Mother, it will be dinner time in half an hour. Let's eat together today." What is His Royal Highness Crown Prince thinking? Pu Qiutai was really helpless to Xia Dongming, a 5-year-old child. This brain turned an idea. If he was 15 or 25 years old, if he was still alive at that time, I am afraid that he would have to live to make him count to death. But this time Pu Qiutai wronged Xia Dongming. This little prince really didn't have any plans in his heart. He liked to see Pu Qiutai like he couldn't do anything about himself. And he also liked to see Zhu Shanyan and Zhu Mingfang's frightened eyes, feeling that the hand he was holding in his hand was trembling lightly, but he didn't dare to pull it out. He had a great pleasure in his heart. In short, as long as Pu Qiutai and the Zhu family sisters and brothers were not happy, he would be happy. Pu Qiutai is indeed helpless to Xia Dongming. This is the prince after all. If the evil form is unreasonable, he is confident that he still has the right to teach the other party a lesson, but this little wolf is smart. He puts on sheep's clothing, but he has no way to take him. The four of them entered the study together. Pu Qiutai asked Honglian to prepare a pen and paper, glanced at Xia Dongming again, and then picked up the pen and brushed on the rice paper to write. Yangzhou's bright moon dueling flower, Sandwich Road to suit Yingli Hua, the old house Zhongdu Flying Eye. The new Marquis Guane Wuan home. Xia Dongming watched Pu Qiutai put down his pen, read it out lightly, and then blinked his eyes and looked at the other party. Mother. What kind of poem are you writing? It's nothing, just write it for fun. Pu Qiutai didn't answer specifically, looked up at the window for a while, sighed lightly, and then the brush fell. This time it was Zhu Shanyan who read it softly. Yabu's slender waist is first called in, and the hairpin is set for love. Feng Rongsheng is unparalleled, and he is the first to play the piano. Shang Lin flowers and birds sketch silk, forbidden people's expectations point notation. The willow wind is slightly spring, and the sycamore dew blows the flute in the cold twilight. Reading this, he was suddenly stunned, looked up at Pu Qiutai and said in surprise, "Uncle, you. What are you writing about?" "It's my grandfather and Yuan." "Royal concubine Yuan's business?" "What royal concubine Yuan? Which concubine was in the previous dynasty?" Suddenly, hearing Xia Dongming's question, Zhu Shanyan was shocked in his heart, and hurriedly said nervously, I said the wrong thing for a while, His Royal Highness Crown Prince." Before he finished speaking, he saw Xia Dongming wave his hand and said, "Okay, remember, you owe me a favor. Now tell me, what do these sentences written by the mother concubine mean? His Royal Highness Crown Prince, if you want to make a poem, it's not easy to disturb. It's better for the slave to go out with you." Farong hurriedly whispered, but saw Xia Dongming squinting at Zhu Shanyan and smiled. "Go out to play? Okay. Let Brother Yun go out with me to take a walk." Where did Zhu Shanyan dare to accompany him out? His body shrank back, and only looked at Pu Qiutai. Pu Qiutai was helpless. So he had to put down his pen and said to Xia Dongming, "His Royal Highness Crown Prince is extremely noble. What are you always doing with Zhu Shanyan? It's just that smart people will be far-sighted. Why can't the mother concubine? Even if I ask him to go out to play with me, I won't eat him. And with you watching, can I still beat and scold him? If he can get closer to me now, and grow up in the future, won't he be less embarrassed? Doesn't the mother know this truth?" Pu Qiutai never expected Xia Dongming to say such a thing, and couldn't help but be stunned for a while. After thinking for a long time, he nodded and said in a deep voice, "You said it yourself, you will never beat and scold him? Although you are a prince, you are also a man, and you should understand the truth of a promise. Okay. Let me see today if you are a good man who keeps your promises." Zhu Mingfang frowned. She also knew in her heart that Xia Dongming was right. Uncle Pu did this for the benefit of their sister and brother. It's just that she was a little uneasy in her heart after all. And seeing Xia Dongming triumphantly holding Zhu Shanyan's hand and walking out, she turned to Pu Qiutai and whispered, "Uncle, you say, will His Royal Highness Crown Prince keep his word?" Pu Qiutai sighed in his heart, and said to Zhu Mingfang, "There is no reason to prevent thieves for 1,000 days. And now they are all living under one roof. If your highness can really live in peace with you, I will always rest assured." Farong also said on the side, "Mother is right. His Royal Highness has been willful since he was a child, and often the more you don't let him do anything, the more he wants to do it. If you are accustomed to one thing, you will not be interested." Speaking of which, His Royal Highness was born without a biological mother, and now the adoptive queen mother has also passed away. Although he is domineering, he is also a poor child. I don't know if Pu Qiutai's words played a role, or Xia Dongming deliberately wanted to relax Pu Qiutai's defense against himself. This time, he and Zhu Shanyan went out. But they just listened to each other play 2 tunes, and sent people back. It's just that although he was unscathed, in the face of the amazing domineering child, Zhu Shanyan, who was 3 years older than him, was still scared half to death, until he returned to Pu Qiutai's side, and he still felt that his legs kept shaking.